We just had an insane episode of Gozyuger. There was the appearance of Red Buster, Shinkenred super form, and the reveal of the gray-eyed man. And that's not even all of it. There's a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, I'll keep the Go Buster part brief since, let's be honest, it was the least interesting part of the episode. But as much as it upsets me that Red Buster was just fodder, I can't be too upset. I mean, plenty of other warriors were either off-screen or beaten like 5 seconds. Here, at least they gave us a user, ring ability, and a decent fight. But why did they have to make Bro's shoe fall off? I guess it is in character for Kijino. Anyways, there are some Easter eggs here that I definitely want to talk about. First off, like I said, this is Kijino from Donbrothers. And they even gave him a pink shirt to reference his character. But alongside this, they have him working at a fried chicken food truck, which is a hilarious reference to how Hiromu was afraid of chickens. He would literally freeze up if he saw one. And I find it kind of funny that they got a bird to play a reference to a character that is afraid of chickens. But like I said, he was quickly defeated by Fire Candle, leaving Fire Candle wanting more power, which we'll get to that in a bit. Moving on, we gotta talk about the gray-eyed hooded man, aka Rei, or otherwise known as Oto's kidnapper. And originally I thought he was gonna be Rikuo's brother, but apparently he's an acquaintance from his idol days. Not only that, I actually thought he was going to be Red Buster. And the director even said he baited us with that. That is just devious. But anyways, this guy had to be famous at one point because Rikuo idolized him so much to copy his eyes, and he has to hide his identity. But strange enough, he has a scar that's vaguely similar to Kuon's. Now obviously the scar doesn't have the same markings, but it's still strange that two characters have an extremely vivid scar on their body. However, Kuon's scar is just a big giant X on his back, while this one just looks like a slash mark. Which we do see that Rei did get into some sort of altercation that gave him the scar, but we don't know who the perpetrator was. And interestingly, he said that he already died once for Rikuo. Now there are two ways that you could interpret this. He literally died and somehow is alive, or his career as an idol died on that day. I'd personally like to believe that it was the first one because, well, it just seems so much more plausible, but I figured I'd mention it. And like I said, it just feels way too coincidental that two characters would have an extremely apparent scar and have them not connected in some way. And for some reason, bro was just popping pills after showing his scar. So this makes me wonder if he was saved by Tegasword or someone and the pills are just making his scar look normal. And is this how he knows about the Gozyugers and the rings? And how far-fetched is it to think that this guy could become a ring hunter like Garyudo? And I mean, there is a gray Tegasword and a gray GozyuWolf ring for sale right now. And that one is not premium Bandai. So basically what I'm saying is that this guy could become the gray GozyuWolf or maybe the phantom GozyuWolf. But this still begs the question, how did Oto get her hands on a ring if she was in a coma? Like, the ring didn't just spawn on her, right? And not only that, he was the only person around her for years. And logically, I don't see a kidnapper giving their victim the ability to leave on their own free will. So I definitely feel like he has some connection to her contract in some way. Maybe in the form of blackmail. You fight on my behalf and the ring will give you life sort of situation. Though I really don't think that they'll make a third Shinkenred or something like that. At the end of the day, I really just feel like this guy has some sort of connection to Brighton, but we just don't know the full story yet. However, there's a huge question of why did he kidnap Oto? Is there the possibility that he saw something in Oto as a child, like to be an idol or something like that? We know that Rei was someone that Rikuo looked up to and aspired to be like. So I'd like to imagine that he was an idol like Rikuo was. So maybe he saw a sparkle in Oto's eyes that made him want to make her famous. After all, he didn't see what other people saw in Rikuo. And honestly, for how much we learned about this guy in this episode, we still know so little. But my biggest question is, why does he want Rikuo to betray the team? This is something we saw Kuon do with Hoeru, but here it seems like Rei is just blackmailing him. And while Kuon is just trying to collect the rings to create an ideal world, Rei is just wanting to be saved. But saved by what exactly? The law? Sumino? Tegasword? The no ones? I feel like this will be explained more next week for sure. And with this in mind, I wonder if the entire team will have a traitor arc given that 2 out of 5 have already had this kind of arc. But I just don't know how it would work for the other team members. But I have a weird feeling that this will end up being a bonding moment between Rikuo and Hoeru, where both of them were manipulated to turn on the team at one point. And this will give Rikuo the drive to overcome whatever Rei has looming over his head. And I imagine this will lead to a tag team with them facing Fire Candle. Which, speaking of Fire Candle, oh my goodness, there is so much to unpack with just this one section. And I'm gonna say it, us Shinkenger fans have been eating for the past month and I have been loving it. Now just the idea that super forms are now in play is just something huge. And from the looks of it, Fire Candle can immediately go into a super form since the ring changed in its entirety. But interestingly, it seems like the Orca Buster chose him similar to how the ring chose him. Almost like it's a sentient creature like every other item in the show. So this makes me wonder if the Orca Buster will just randomly disappear at times. And I mean, they definitely are going to want to show off these new rings they have on sale. So I fully expect to see Legend Magi Red, Super Lupin Red, and Super Patranger Ichigo. And hell, why stop there? The Boonboomger stage show is now finally wrapped up. Bring Sasumi back and have him show off his super form. Also, I just want to see how many of his supposed rings he's been collecting. But on the topic of the Orca Blaster, it seems like Mashido knew about this thing and tried to stop Fire Candle from using it. But he didn't try to stop him because it would create Super Shinkenred. No, it has to corrupt the user in some way. Which leads us to the biggest part of the episode, which is whatever the heck this thing is. Is it another Shinkenred? Is it Gadoshu Shinkenred? Or is it something completely different? I don't know. All we know is that Fire Candle definitely gained a Berserk form. Yet this is completely different to what Shoko had. Shoko's form wasn't artificially made, while Fire Candle's was formed using an item that took him wanting power and turned him into a raging monster. At the end of the day, Shoko just wanted to protect someone, while Fire Candle just wants to get stronger. But if you saw my video on potential Berserk forms, you would know that Shoko's form is based off the Yankee concept, referring to the Zuko Rangers and Ranger. So I used the same concept for Shinkenred by mentioning Juzo, who is one of the main villains in Shinkenger. And well, for this one, they definitely took inspiration from the Gadoshu, and I think I was at least in the right ballpark. But they could have taken inspiration from the Power Ranger Samurai Shogun form. But definitely take a look at that video if you want to hear more about the rest of the potential forms I had in mind. But while talking about Juzo, if you slow down the preview, you can actually notice that Juzo is actually in the next episode. And I'll be honest, I'm shocked at how well this suit has held up, given that it's a white suit and it's almost 15 years old. But this makes me wonder if this Berserk form can summon old monsters. Or is this a side effect of the Orca Buster itself? If it's the latter, oh boy, we are in for a treat with Gozyuger. Or could this actually be Rei becoming Juzo in some way? I doubt it, but honestly, Gozyuger has been throwing curveballs at us, so anything is possible. But given all of this, I think that next week will be the week that they finally take down Fire Candle, which I hope isn't the case since I've loved his rivalry with Hueru. If anything, I think this will be the destruction of his ring contract. Then again, we don't know the full side effects of this Berserk form, so maybe death will be a sacrifice for power. Also, this is just a random thought I had, but what if Kuon eventually got the Orca Blaster? Could he use the super forms of the rings he's already collected? And if I'm being honest, I think Tegajun will eventually create a similar item for Kuon, just like how she made a similar item to the Deca Caliber. If not, Tegajun is a fraud-washed god. Well, I guess technically she is a fraud god. But on the topic of the Orca Buster, I just want to talk about Wild GozyuWolf, because my goodness, this suit is clean. I already love the base suits, and they just end up making an even cooler super form. And of course with this, Hueru gets a new item alongside a new mecha. And I really like how the ring gives him a little circle in the middle, almost like it's referring to his signature pose. Now I know this acts as a super form for him, but could this also give him access to other super forms? Either way, it definitely seems like the new Akatsuki Tegasword has slots for Sentai rings or even Gozyuger rings. So I wonder if he could use their ring powers on this Tegasword. And I also find it cool that this Tegasword kind of looks like a samurai. And even the sword looks similar to the ones that the Shinkengers use. Either way, there is so much to look forward to in the next episode. But if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe with notifications on. And leave a comment with your favorite emoji and your predictions for the next episode. And with that, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. I'm FalPlays, and I'm out. Peace.